Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I got an exciting update for you on the game Corepunk. This is that top-down MMORPG that looks kind of like a old school Warcraft 3 game. I mean, I guess just in general, it's got like a MOBA feel to it. Some of the things and the features of it are that it's got this seamless open world, and they really also emphasize this fog of war mechanic that's meant to like incentivize exploration and discovery. Like as you wander around, you can find a chest with loot or a rare monster or a wandering merchant. And the Fog of War also plays into the fact that the game has open world PvP where you could sneak up on unsuspecting enemies. Beyond the appearance of it too, the game is going to have a lot of these traditional MMORPG systems. So there's going to be crafting and mining professions. There are arenas and battlegrounds. There will be guilds, farms, pack deliveries, questing of course. There's randomly generated dungeons, raids, and well, a whole lot more of what you expect from an MMO. Now, I've talked about this game in a couple videos at this point, but I want to make a new video because we have actually got a bunch of new information. First off, there was this quarterly update where they went over various systems and changes they've been working on. They also just about a week or two ago did this AMA over on the MMORPG subreddit, which is very quite an interesting place, but they did an AMA and they gave a lot more information about more systems and stuff that we weren't really super aware of. And then lastly, I spent some time scouring over the game's FAQ, and there was actually a few things that I missed initially that I want to cover here in this video. So we actually have a lot to talk about when it comes to Corepunk. So if you're interested in this game, if you're looking forward to it, buckle up because we're about to dive in. So let's start off with the quarterly update. This came out in the beginning of the month, and they went over again various systems and things that they have been working on. So first, let's talk about the changes to the quest system. Now, with the initial announcement trailer, they showed this interaction with this quest NPC, and they had a kind of a pretty standard, typical MMO questing interface. Well, since then, they've actually overhauled the interface and structure of the questing system to try to give us more options to learn about the backstory, chat with the NPCs, get various hints and information about the quests that we might partake on, and just open up new plot twist and kind of useful information. And again, I think it gives it this more natural, almost conversational feel is what they're apparently going for. They also talk about the coordinator. Now, this was in the gameplay that came out as well, but essentially this is like a narrator for your adventure. I guess it's going to have the biggest emphasis on the early game to help guide you through the play experience and become familiar with the game and its various systems, as well as the lore and history of the world. They've also added jumping to the game, which is interesting. This is not super common in top-down games, but a very common thing in MMOs, and they wanted to add that into Corepunk. So this does a few things. First of all, obviously it allows you to navigate the environment a little better, jumping over obstacles and stuff, and also increasing the types and styles of puzzles that they can have in the game. But also in MMO, jumping is just kind of this common form of expression. Like hopping up and down is a method of character expression in these games. It's not too uncommon to see characters frantically jumping up and down to get another player's interest or just to be annoying. They touched on some of the customization that they've improved. They've expanded and added more character customization options. They do say that this is still a work in progress and there will be more to come. I don't know how useful that's going to be in a top-down game necessarily, but frankly, customization of characters in MMOs in general doesn't really end up meaning too much because eventually you're covered in armor and hoods and masks and all sorts of stuff anyways. But you know, people like it, so it's fine. It's great. Customization, great. Here's a really cool thing. They've added fatalities to the game. So essentially they're working on having this deeply customizable fatality system depending on the type of damage and the power scale of the damage that was done to take them out. So for example, if an enemy is burned and killed with a flame gun, their corpse will be charred and like fall into these ashes on the ground. If you take out enemies with this sharp blade, like a giant sword, it will dismember them. It'll like chop their heads off or something. This is actually, I really like this. And I think it's something that can be overlooked. And you know, when it's not in games, it's noticeable. When it is in games, it adds that little extra touch. They've done some more work for the heroes and the mastery systems. So they say there's still lots to work on, but they're really focusing right now on the champion, dwarf, bomber, paladin, orc, and demon. These are 6 of the 12 heroes character classes basically that are going to be in the game at launch, and they've gone through improving their abilities, skills, and mastery 3 systems, and they're going to be making more complex and engaging ways to play these characters, like their different play styles, their capabilities, and all stuff. And they say more details specifically about the heroes will be coming in a future update here. And then one of the final big things that they touched on is that they're really focusing right now on making sure that they make the gameplay feel good and really nailing down just the game's development. For this reason, going forward, they want to focus on gameplay, and they're going to cease development of any more promotional videos or playable demos. They just want to work on making Corepunk playable and polished and getting it ready for the upcoming beta testing, which, speaking of which, they finally are nailing down a rough date for the beta. So the closed beta testing date, they're aiming for early December, roughly around the same time that the game was announced last year. And in this beta, there will be 6 playable heroes, the 6 that we mentioned earlier, and there will be a level cap of 20. And then at the very end of this post, there was a few screenshots if you're interested in checking those out. Okay, so that was the quarterly update post. And then we have a couple of other things. As I mentioned, there was an AMA on Reddit. This was done with Eugene Kyver, I believe it's pronounced. He is the producer at Artificial Core, the developers of Corepunk. He's the one you've probably seen in a lot of their developer videos. So in this AMA, he responded to a ton of questions. I went through the entire thread, and I've broken them up into sections, and I want to share with you some of the more interesting bits of information. So first off, some gameplay related answers. He did say in a question he was asked if there will be attack move in the game. The answer was yes. So attack move, you might know if you've played any RTS games in the past, like it's a common thing to have. And this game, again, it's not really like a Diablo Path of Exile ARPG. It's much more like a MOBA style gameplay or an RTS. Think of like Warcraft 3 style. It seems to have a lot of similarities with that kind of game, not only perspective, but the movement and abilities and stuff like that. So there will be attack move. They're also saying when it comes to the difficulty of the game's encounters and combat, that they're aiming for a WoW Classic difficulty. It's kind of a vague, I don't know exactly what that's supposed to mean. I mean, I'm very familiar with WoW Classic. I played it 15 years ago. I played it last year when it was re-released. I know the game pretty well, but I don't know specifically what does that mean? Does it mean in like how long it takes to kill NPCs, how easy it is to die? I'm not sure of the specifics, but something pertaining to WoW Classic is the difficulty that they're aiming for with Corepunk. Now, a couple of answers about PvE. When asked about how long it would take to reach max level, he said it was going to be roughly 80 to 100 hours. And he was also asked if you could level just by doing PvP. The answer was yes. There's going to be a lot of PvP systems, arenas, and battlegrounds, as well as the open world. And you could level by doing solely PvP, although he said he expects that it would take longer than if you leveled just by traditional questing and grinding. Dungeons in the game are going to have various difficulty options, and there will also be solo dungeons. In fact, he said that a majority of the game's content could be soloed, with the obvious exception of things like raids or group dungeons. But yeah, various dungeon difficulties. I wonder if this is going to be similar to kind of the system that World of Warcraft has, where you've got like normal, heroic, and mythic, and then mythic plus, just giving people various entry points with various tiered rewards. And then in relation to PvE, we did learn that there will be a magic find equivalent in the game where you can increase the output that you get from killing mobs, the chance to find better items. Now let's move on to some PvP discussion. Again, there's going to be arenas in the game. There will be 1v1 and 2v2 versions. There will also be battlegrounds, which they are tentatively shooting for that to be a 12 versus 12 mode. That could change, but that's what they're playing with at the moment. They're looking to do capture the flag, control points, deathmatch, and they're also thinking, and this is hilarious, they're thinking about a 3-lane MOBA inspired mode, which, you know, it makes perfect sense because this game looks to play so much like a MOBA. I think it'd be really funny if they just threw a MOBA PvP mode in this game. It would work, really, I think anyways. No PvP scaling in the game, so how powerful your character is with your gear and your level and everything is how powerful your character will stay in the PvE as well as PvP. And he mentioned that there will be both ranked and unranked play options. PvP is also going to have its own separate gearing system. This is tied into the karma system as well. So the karma system system, if you don't know, is basically if you kill players who are weaker than you, you gain this negative karma, and that can flag you as a PK player. The fact that this game has open world PvP and this karma system with PKers and sheriffs is very exciting to someone like me. I find that stuff, it adds a sense of thrill and danger to the world, although apparently the PvP system is a toggle one, so realize if that's something you're not interested in engaging in at all, it seems like you can avoid it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the heroes. As I mentioned, there's going to be 12 in the game at total. They're working on 6 for the first closed beta test. He was asked if there was going to be any rogue type characters in the game. The answer was yes. At the moment, there is one of the dwarf weapon specs that plays kind of like an assassin, and some of the other heroes in the future are going to have these kind of rogue assassin style builds. Support characters in the game, the way that these are going to work is that they will focus on these pillars. It will be control, a little bit of healing, and then buffs and debuffs. In addition to that, there are also just straight up healers, which again primarily focus on healing. And there's also, he was asked if there's going to be pet classes, and the answer is there won't be for the first CBT, but by the time we have all of the classes closer to release, there will be pet classes in the game. There was a few responses to questions about various systems and features in the game. Player housing is going to be a thing, but that won't be coming until after release. Apparently there are going to be 4 crafting professions and 4 gathering professions, and top level crafters are going to be able to make this raid tier gear. There's also going to be party mounts in the game, so these are mounts that multiple people can mount onto. And then finally, some updates, some information about various updates post-launch and stuff like that. They're not exactly sure, evidently, how major updates or expansions are going to work. They're still trying to figure out, you know, are we going to do like quarterly big patches? Are we going to do one big expansion a year or whatever? They haven't really nailed that down, but they do know that the first big post-release update is going to include things like guild halls, a farming system, as well as that player housing. That's going to be, that's what they plan. So that is the AMA. Those are most of the interesting things that I pulled out of that. And the final thing that I want to cover is some things that I kind of missed in the FAQ and that I haven't talked about yet that I want to cover here real quick. So there's a section that goes over the PvE and the types of PvE that are going to be in Corepunk. So they're going to have dungeons, both solo and for groups of up to 4. There will be randomly generated dungeons as well as raids with mini bosses. There's also going to be world bosses and wandering bosses with this camp system of advanced open world AI that is supposed to be a big challenge for players. And they said most importantly, they're focusing on the experience of exploring a highly elaborate and detailed world. And I think this probably plays back into the Fog of War system where they want to incentivize you because you can't see things that aren't immediately in your camera view. So you're going to want to explore and uncover what's in the various areas. In relation to solo play, they say that the game is designed so that each player can decide for themselves how they want to play. If you want to play it solo, virtually everything in the game can be experienced by a solo player with the exception of raid content and world bosses. PvP, as I mentioned, there are arenas, battlegrounds, and open world. Killing players will grant you honor points, and those can be used to purchase equipment. And then, as I mentioned before, the karma system, you get karma points when you kill players that are weaker than you, and that will eventually flag you as PK. And if you are flagged as PK, you are forbidden from entering regular cities and towns. You lose an artifact on death. And they say here that killing a player even 1 level lower will grant you enough karma to be marked as PK. So it doesn't take much to get that classification. I also finally figured out how the business model is going to be. It is going to be buy to play with cosmetics, and those cosmetics are going to be from the battle pass and an in-game shop. They promise though, no boosters, nothing that affects gameplay, only cosmetics in the shop and battle pass. You know, we hear that a lot with any games that have shops and battle passes. We'll see if they have XP boost or currency boost or other things that people kind of frown on but end up getting thrown in sometimes anyways. So that was a lot. That was a lot to go through, but I'm glad I could put this thing together for you guys because yeah, we got a lot of new interesting information about Corepunk. The more and more I hear about this game, the better it sounds. It's pretty clear to me that the perspective and the gameplay style is going to be a big turnoff for a lot of people. I don't think this game is going to appeal to everyone, but honestly, when I watch the gameplay and when I read about this stuff, I get like this very cozy feeling. And I think it actually goes back to the fact that looking at this reminds me a lot. It's like the memory I have in my head of playing those Warcraft 3 custom games when I was a little lad at my friend's friend's house. I'd go over for sleepovers and we'd play that shit all night and we would never go to bed. This reminds me of that, and I like what I'm seeing, I do. And when it comes to features, they're nailing it. I mean, what they're talking about has all of it checks all of the boxes of what I like to have for systems to engage in and things to do in an MMO. And there's something really alluring to me about the visual style and the perspective that they're going with. So I know not everyone's hyped for this game, but I cannot wait to get my hands on Corepunk. I think it looks cool. I think they've got some promising ideas. Hope you liked the video. Thank you all so much for watching. As we get more bigger updates and information coming out in this game, I will be sure to let you know. Although, as I mentioned here, they're really going to stray away from putting the time and effort into developing gameplay trailers or playable demos. They're putting their heads down. They're going forward with trying to get this thing polished and ready for the closed beta test in just a few months, sometime in December. So, I guess we'll be playing this in a few months from now, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video update on Corepunk, and I'll see you next time. All right, take it easy.